quiet now, over the side. Into the water, lads.
In the mid-18th century, one empire ruled the seas, controlled global trade, and commanded fear across continents. Yet from small wooden towns along the Atlantic coast, a daring question emerged. Could ordinary colonies challenge the most powerful empire on Earth? What followed was not just a war, but a turning point that reshaped history forever. By the early 1700s, the American colonies were firmly under British rule. Great Britain governed these lands from across the Atlantic, enforcing laws, collecting taxes, and regulating trade. For decades, the system appeared stable. Britain offered protection, while the colonies provided raw materials and loyalty. On the surface, it seemed like a balanced relationship, but beneath that calm, tension slowly grew. After the costly 7 Years' War ended in 1763, Britain faced enormous debt. To recover, Parliament imposed new taxes on the colonies, including the Stamp Act and later the Townshend Acts. To British leaders, these measures were reasonable. To the colonists, they felt like chains tightening without consent. The phrase, "no taxation without representation," began to echo through colonial streets. Ordinary merchants, farmers, and printers questioned why decisions about their lives were made by a distant parliament where they had no voice. Resistance took many forms, from boycotts of British goods to fiery pamphlets that spread ideas of liberty and self-rule. Emotion ran high in cities like Boston. Protests grew louder. Trust faded. British soldiers patrolled colonial streets, a visible reminder of imperial authority. Fear and anger mixed in the air, turning everyday encounters into sparks waiting to ignite. By the early 1770s, the relationship between Britain and its colonies had reached a breaking point. What began as political disagreement was transforming into open defiance. The empire still appeared unshakable, but history was quietly preparing a surprise. And as protests hardened into resistance, one dramatic confrontation would push both sides past the point of return, setting the stage for a conflict no one could fully control. It started with whispers and small acts of defiance, tea thrown into harbors, tax collectors harassed, streets filled with angry voices. But one winter night in Boston, a single spark threatened to engulf an empire. Could a handful of determined colonists really stand against the most disciplined army in the world? Or were they lighting their own destruction? By 1773, tensions had escalated to a boiling point. Britain, determined to assert control, passed the Tea Act, granting the East India Company monopoly over colonial tea sales. For colonists already weary of taxes and restrictions, this was intolerable. On December 16, 1773, a group of colonists disguised as Mohawk warriors boarded British ships in Boston Harbor. They dumped 342 chests of tea into the icy water. The event, later known as the Boston Tea Party, shocked the empire and electrified the colonies. Britain responded swiftly and harshly. The coercive acts, called the Intolerable Acts by colonists, closed Boston's port, stripped local governance, and allowed British soldiers to quarter in private homes. Ordinary citizens felt the grip of the empire tighten. Families watched as livelihoods were threatened, shops shuttered, and fear of violence spread. Across the colonies, leaders began to unite. The First Continental Congress met in 1774, bringing together representatives to coordinate resistance. Letters, petitions, and meetings spread a sense of solidarity. Citizens who had once focused only on local concerns now began to see themselves as part of a shared struggle. The atmosphere was tense. Streets buzzed with secret meetings, intelligence shared in whispers, and the knowledge that one misstep could lead to violent confrontation. Soldiers and citizens eyed each other with suspicion, and the shadow of impending war grew heavier with every day. The world was about to witness the first shots that would change history forever. And once fired, there would be no turning back, as both colonists and empire would be drawn into a war that would decide the fate of a nation. In April 1775, Dawn broke over the quiet towns of Lexington and Concord, but peace was an illusion. The sound of musket fire shattered the morning calm, and ordinary farmers found themselves facing trained soldiers of the greatest empire on earth. Could these untested militias survive, or would the first shots crush their dream of independence before it began? On April 19, 1775, British troops marched toward Concord to seize colonial weapons. Along the way, they encountered militias in Lexington. The tension was palpable. Men faced each other in the early morning mist, hearts pounding, breaths visible in the cold air. Suddenly, a shot rang out. History would never know which side fired first. The shot heard round the world marked the start of the American Revolutionary War. Outnumbered and under-equipped, colonial militias fought with courage and knowledge of their terrain, retreating and regrouping as the British advanced. By the time the Redcoats reached Concord, they faced stiff resistance, and skirmishes erupted across the countryside. Ordinary men, many farmers and tradesmen, were now soldiers. Families watched from hidden windows, fear and hope intertwining. Smoke rose over villages as musket fire echoed through forests. The colonies had taken their first steps toward independence, but the cost was immediate and terrifying. Lives lost, homes threatened, and the certainty that Britain would not retreat quietly. The news spread rapidly. From Boston to Charleston, towns braced for conflict. Volunteers rushed to enlist. The colonies, once disparate and divided, began to see themselves as a single entity bound by a shared struggle. The first spark of rebellion had exploded into open war, and the world's most powerful empire was forced to recognize a new and determined enemy. The next chapter would push both sides to the edge of endurance as the war spread beyond small towns into a full-scale struggle for survival, testing loyalty, leadership, and the very limits of human courage. The year was 1781, and the outcome seemed impossible. From ragged camps to distant battlefields, colonial soldiers faced shortages, disease, and relentless enemy forces. Yet, against overwhelming odds, a combination of strategy, courage, and unyielding resolve would turn despair into victory and redefine the fate of an entire nation forever. After years of grueling battles, the Revolutionary War had become a test of endurance. Early victories and crushing defeats shaped the resolve of the Continental Army. Led by George Washington, soldiers endured harsh winters at places like Valley Forge, surviving on meager rations and facing relentless cold. Morale faltered, but the dream of independence fueled every step forward. Crucial alliances shifted the balance. France, seeking to weaken Britain, provided troops, ships, and supplies. Their support proved decisive in battles across the colonies, especially in the southern campaigns. Guerrilla tactics, surprise attacks, and intimate knowledge of the land allowed colonial forces to outmaneuver the disciplined British Army in ways traditional warfare could not predict. The decisive moment arrived at Yorktown in 1781. British forces, trapped by a combined French fleet and Continental Army, faced a siege they could not escape. After weeks of bombardment, surrender became inevitable. The empire that once seemed invincible bowed to the resilience of a determined people, proving that courage and unity could overcome even the greatest power. The victory sparked celebrations and a wave of hope. For ordinary citizens, the war had been more than battles. It was a testament to human endurance, ingenuity, and the desire for self-determination. Families, soldiers, and leaders alike realized that the impossible had been achieved. Though the war ended, the journey of a new nation was only beginning. Lessons of sacrifice, leadership, and unity would shape the United States for generations as the echoes of this struggle continued to inspire the world. What did you think of this video about American history? If you enjoyed it, we regularly upload many informative and knowledge-based videos on this channel, so please consider subscribing to stay connected with us. Thank you for watching the video until the end.